Let's do some drywall.
Hello everybody, Drywall Repairman here. Look at this. This is a shower or tubs on the other side. The plumber had to open up the wall on the other side to have access so they could change out the stuffs on here for the valve. Very common job, plumbing access. This is in a closet on the other side of the room. So we're going to get this patched in. Tricky area here, we got a black pipe here. It's kind of loose. So I'm going to try to get some backing. I might try to get a piece of wood in to kind of hold this piece of pipe back so it's more secure, so it's not just wobbling in the wall. It's just a drain vent pipe that probably goes to the ceiling. They kept the existing piece of sheetrock here, but it looks like they took a notch out, maybe for a paint match. I don't know what's doing there. But first things first, let's get the area all plastic off, put plastic on the floor. This is going to be a spray knockdown texture, spray knockdown, so we're going to have to spray this whole area once we get it all coated out. First things first, let's get some plastic on the floor. And the lighting here is kind of goofy because we are in a closet, tight area, so I'm going to just make the best I can with this tight area. I'm just making a video on this. I have several videos like this because this is a very common patch. Everybody that has a shower or a tub in their house, at least one time in your home ownership life, you're going to have to change out the valves. And if you're lucky, you have access to it on the other side of the wall. Worst case scenario, I've seen them where they have to rip out the whole shower or tub just to get access to the valve. They switch out the O-rings so the valve works correctly. It's something that probably has to be done every so often when the valve starts leaking on the shower tub. Let's get to work. Just 1.5" masking tape. This is a go-to masking for painting, drywall, basic masking, prep work. The prep work is where all the work is. Drywall's easy, but you gotta keep the mess. I'm gonna just mask off the base boards around. Just mask it off. I'm just take my plastic and I'm just gonna tack it into the 1.5" tape. That's why I like to use a bigger, wider tape so I can have a little bit of lip on it, so I can just tack the tape up, plastic up to it. Nothing to it. Alright, area is masked. Backing. There's several choices of backing. My go-to is always the 1x2s. 1x2, 1x2, or you can do top and bottom, all 4 sides, whatever you want to do. Here I have an issue with this black pipe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pencil and I'm going to mark it. If this was plumbed correctly, this pipe wouldn't be right against the sheetrock like it is. So I'm just going to mark it so I remember. No screws, just in case, just in case. So this 1x2s would work perfect. I'm going to do it across. The reason I'm going to do it across is that way the black pipe gets pushed back. It's tight. But now that piece of wood's pushing the black pipe back so it's more secure, so you don't have a pipe wobbling in the wall. The pipe should have been secured by the plumber when they first did it. So I know not to put screws here. I'm going to definitely put a screw on this side of it, and then this side of it, and then no screws here, so I'm going to kick it over. This is 1/2" sheetrock, so I'm just using 1.25" screws. So you don't want a big old long screws going through the sheetrock and through the wood. You just want to secure it right to the wood. One there. And then I'm going to do another one on the bottom. This one's too long, so I have to cut it back. If you don't want to use 1x2s, you can also use wood sheeting. I have everything on hand. Smaller 1x2s, wood sheeting, thinner sheeting, thicker sheeting. You can even do piece there, piece there. This is secure, so I'm just using a wood sheeting piece that I have, so I don't have to go cut the piece of wood down. Same thing there. Put a screw here. No screws here since I marked it. No screws there. That's secure. said, you can also use a new piece of sheetrock. This one's still solid. They just had to cut it out, didn't get water damage. But they did cut a niche there, so I'm going to have to put a little piece of patch there. So I'm just going to see where it sits. I can just put a piece of drywall in there to hang it. And I'm just going to kind of mark it right here. Mark it, because I know I'm going to have to put a piece of sheetrock in that, so I'm just going to use a piece of backing here, just a small piece. I don't want to do a big piece like this, just in case they ever have to open up the wall again to access it. So I'm just going to do a small one on the side here. And hey, I got an extra piece here, so I'm going to just throw one on this side too. This is extra credit. It's kind of goofy with this pipe in my way, so I'm going to put a cheater screw in. This cheater screw is meant to hold the piece of wood like that, so you have leverage. And you get it in there, and now I can hold that screw against the drywall. Pull it towards me. The screw gun, use that leverage screw. I'm pulling the piece of wood towards me, secure against drywall. Set the screw. I like to get at least 2 screws in it before I back out my leverage screw. Let's do a third one here. There you go. That's pushing the backing. I know I'm not going to put screws. I might get just a screw in the corner. That's just to keep the piece of drywall in there. Now the piece that they already had should fit nicely. They took a notch out there, I guess, for a paint match. They'll fit nicely. Remember where I marked it here. No screws, no screws, no screws. But I'll kick it over, put a screw here. Also helps you actually hit the stud. So that side's secure. This top is secure. Now the bottom. No screws there, remember? So I'm going to kick it over. That, I'm just going to toenail one just in the corner, just to tack this side. 2 studs is good enough. Alright, the little piece that they cut out, and then a little piece of scrap. You could also tape it if you really had to, but I have a scrap piece of drywall in here, so I'm just going to put a little piece in there. I guess they just cut it out so they can have a piece of drywall for the paint match, or they had to open it up to inspect in there. I don't know why. It's just missing a piece. Whittle it down, make your own puzzle pieces. I have a piece of scrap on hand, so no worries. Fit tight, you have to cut it back a little bit to make it fit. Alright, that piece of wood that I have there, put a screw right. Alright, the hard stuff is done. Now we're going to do, get your 6-inch knife, always scrape your patches. See that? My knife hit that screw head, so I need to kind of sink that screw head a little more. Back it out so we get the stud. Scrape all your sides. I also like to scrape past the patch so there's no boogers when I go to mud and texture. Fiberglass mesh tape. I only use fiberglass mesh tape on repairs. Spray glue. This isn't optional. I just like to use a spray glue because it makes the tape bond perfect. Just a little bit goes a long way. That's just to tack the fiberglass on there. The fiberglass is naturally sticky, but it doesn't like to stick to dusty, old painted walls. It likes to really stick to new sheetrock only. Old painted dusty walls, it always falls off. Up and down, I went past that area, then I take my fiberglass and I overlap the one I did on top, and then I overlap the one I did on the bottom. So now I got real secure corners. That patch there, I'm gonna just do another layer over it. Same thing this side, I'm gonna overlap the top one and take it down, overlap it, and just cut it with my knife. You just hold your knife steady and pull the tape. It does a nice clean cut. If you don't do a clean cut, you'll get these little fibers off them. Just pull those off. Make sure everything's pushed down, push down, push down. Everything's ready now, ready for mudding. So go ahead and put all away your hanging tools, get them out of the way. You don't want to get mud, drop mud on your hanging tools. Get them out of here. First coat, usually I just say everybody, if you're a newbie on drywall, just use a joint compound. A joint compound has to dry overnight. Then you sand it, then you second coat, then sand it, then do a third coat if need be, then texture it. But I'm using a hot mud, I'm using a 5-minute mud, that way it dries and it's dry in 5 minutes. So let's go ahead and mix up some 5-minute, and I'm going to just do a quick first coat. I'm going to strike in the tape so the mud gets inside the grooves and the gap of the tape, and then I'm going to coat it. Not a super heavy coat because I'm using hot muds. So let's go ahead and get this first coated. I don't want to get mud on this wall or texture, so I'm going to go ahead and mask the wall. There's no need to get texture on this wall since the patch is just on here. You get texture on here, now they have to sand and paint this wall. So I'm just going to mask the area. This is for spray texture. Spray texture goes everywhere, so I'm just going to use a masking. You don't have a fancy masking machine, that's fine. You could tape up plastic or whatever. You basically have to treat the area like you're doing spray painting, and because you're spraying texture. If you do spray texture, it's going to spray at a high PSI, so it goes everywhere. So no need to do more work than need be, because if I spray texture on that wall, now you got to paint the wall. First coat, I don't need a lot of first coat mud. Like I said, I'm just using a hot mud. If you're using a hot mud or a joint compound, it just needs to be really heavy, thick mud. Fiberglass tape, rule of thumb, always strike it in. Push down hard, you're pushing that mud inside the gap. Through the fiberglass mesh, you're getting the tape. Push down, you're also pushing the mud deep inside the gap. Now you're ready to coat it. This is an important step. I call it like a pre-fill step. It just helps get the mud inside the gap. Some guys like to pre-fill it first, then do the tape over it with fiberglass mesh tape. If you push down hard enough with the knife, the mud will push in the little gaps of the mesh. Now I'm coating it. I'm using just a 12-inch knife. I'm going to go past the patch. I always put all my mud on in my pan on the patch. See how far I can go. Get all the mud. Mix just enough. I don't want to waste none of this material. Feather the sides. Feathering the sides, you just use a knife, you kind of steer it like a steering wheel. I'm going to feather the top, so I'm going to put more pressure on this corner. More pressure on this corner. I'm just feathering that edge. I'm going to feather the sides, so same thing, I'm going to put more pressure. See, I'm steering the knife and putting pressure down with my index finger. I'm going to do the bottom, so I'm going to put pressure on now with my thumb. So I'm going to do the bottom. Feather the edges. Feather the edges. Now I'm going to coat. Since patches, sometimes I just go straight down the middle. You can run it, same pressure on the knife like that, or like that, whatever's comfortable. With me, I just like to just coat it down the middle, then kind of hit the side, same thing there. If I need to feather off my edge, go ahead and feather it. I only wasted a little bit of mud. This is a hot mud, so you want to scrape your pan, get that mud out of your pan, so I didn't waste a lot of materials. While your first coat mud sets up, if it's used in a joint compound, you're just going to have to let that dry overnight. If you're using a hot mud, while this hot mud is setting up, go ahead and clean your tools. Next step after this, I'm going to let it dry. And if it's dry to touch, then I'm going to slick it out. You'll see on all my videos that I work with hot muds, patching and stuff like that. The hot muds, I'm going to slick out technique. Feather out the edge with the wet sponge, kind of give it a little bit of moisture with the damp sponge on it, and then I'm going to slick it out with the 6-inch knife. That basically takes off the extra mud, fills it in. If you leave the patch heavy enough, if you do a good slick out, the good slick out will be almost like a second coat. So we're going to slick this out once it sets up, and hopefully I might not even need to do a second coat if it's slicked out good enough. But in time being, let's let that dry. I'm going to go clean up my tools. The next step will be to slick out after I clean my tools. It's dry to touch, but it's still kind of wet, so it's perfect time to work with it. Slick it out. Damp sponge, straight 6-inch knife. Get rid of that edge. The edge is already feathered when we mud it, but we want to get rid of the edge, and I'm just kind of gliding over it. Some guys like to slick out. I'm going to be putting a lot of pressure on the knife. I'm almost holding it like that. Hold it like that. I'm going to go the opposite direction. I cut it in. You don't necessarily have to go the opposite direction. You can go any direction. You're just taking off the extra material. These strings from fiberglass, get those out of there. Once in a while you'll get them. That's the only thing I don't like about fiberglass. Slicking it out, slicking it out. This is a hot mud technique, used with 5 minutes, 20 minutes, 40 minutes, and 90 minutes only. See, slicked out nice. Took off extra mud since I put enough mud on it, and it's just in a closet. That's good enough for texture. Got my air compressor all set up. I got my hopper. This is a spray knockdown texture. So we're just going to spray the patch. When you do spray pattern, it goes any way. You can go dint, 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 or dint, dint, dint. You just want to do nice, same pattern, same speed to do a nice spray pattern. Just take your time. You don't just spray like everywhere. You got to do a nice pattern. Keep the spray consistent and the same. Spray past your patch, spray further out to blend it in. This is a knockdown, so once you spray like a splatter type texture, then you're done spraying, then you have to turn around and knock it down. So let's go ahead and get this sprayed out. Alright, the air compressor may kick on, may be noisy. Basically you want to have it full pressure, fill up the tank in your air compressor before you run it. I connect the hose, and then I'll turn the hopper on full blast and drain some of the air out of the air compressor. You don't want to just start spraying at full pressure. You want to drain some of the air out of the tank of the compressor and wait till the motor kicks back on, and then you adjust your pressure valve to get the pressure spray you want. Sometimes you can spray a little bit on your plastic or on the floor plastic to kind of get your dot size. This is just a smaller knockdown, so it's a lighter spray. So I'm going to plug it in, let the air compressor run, get some of the pressure that's built up, full pressure out of there, wait till the motor kicks back on, then I'm going to adjust the valve and get my spray pattern right, and then I'm going to spray it at a nice symmetrical sprayer. Ready? Turn it on full blast, run out the pressure until the compressor kicks on. Alright, now you can adjust it. A little heavy. Now you play it. Sprayed the area. Go ahead and unhook your hose. It's hard to see in the lighting in this closet area, but it's all sprayed. Your next step is you're going to need a 6-inch knife, a clean 6-inch knife. I like to always keep a sponge on hand to clean my knife. Use your straight part of your 6. I like to start the outside edge, and see how I'm laying the knife. I'm almost touching the wall. I'm not standing the knife up. I'm literally letting the knife glide over. I'm not pushing down, no pressure. I'm just letting the knife glide over it. And it's doing a light knockdown as it's gliding over. Further out your edge. Make sure you got everything. Some guys like to take the sponge on the outside edge and kind of dot it. Some guys like to smear it away, but I just like to dot it. It gets rid of some of that littler overspray and it just blends it in. Pull your masking. And I forgot to mention the mud I used. I use a joint compound for all spray type textures. Toppings I use, like the yellow mud, I use toppings for hand textures. But the go-to mud for spray knockdowns, splatters, is always just a joint compound. So it's hard to tell here because it's in a closet, but it's a patch all done. The texture you might be doing may be different. This is just a spray knockdown, but the process is the same, patching process. Notice I didn't get no texture, nothing on the wall, so all I have to do is just lightly sand, primer the wall, and it's good to go. Easy patch, done less than an hour. Just let that texture dry for 24 hours, and then it'll be ready to sand, primer, and paint. If you haven't liked this video, go ahead and like. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. Thank you.